Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Saturn Slam Review Retro Edition. That's right, no Elimination Chamber. We're throwing it back. We're going to party like it's 1999 because the show, it was in 1999.
Living dangerously.
There was a word missing in that sentence, but we got there anyway.
We've had a bad night, ladies and gentlemen. We're joining you in the midst of tragedy. You may catch us.
If you follow the Saturn Studs podcast, you have already heard what the situation is and be able to commiserate with us. This is being recorded prior to that, so the wound is still fresh.
Yeah,
it's a deep scar in my psyche.
Much like the scars suffer.
Much like the middle part of this show, which had just 3 awful matches in a row. If I struggle to call a couple of them matches, but there were also 3 pretty damn good matches on the show. So all in all, it averages out to be a pretty good show, I would say. There's definitely been better shows. I think the network, watching this on the network kind of sucks, because they heavily edit the sound to, remove the cursing, well, some of the cursing, remove the copywritten music that they don't have an agreement with, which really kills, like, Rob Van Dam's entrance, because they have to mute the crowd because they sing along with the song, which they don't have the rights to. So if you had this generic, whatever the fuck, trash music they gave him, and people going, respect the walk, no one would understand what the fuck was going on. So that hurt. Joey Styles as a one-man commentary booth was not great. I'll say that.
Tried his damnedest, but
credit where credit's due. He actually called moves, which is refreshing. But he would often call them incorrectly, or not really let something sink in.
His commentating reflected the mood of the night, which, I don't watch a lot of ECW, but describing this pay-per-view in a word, I would call it loose.
Yes.
Free form.
This was ECW was the edgy alternative wrestling in the late 90s and early 2000s, as in 2000 and 2001.
And I knew it was ECW because every time anyone set foot into the crowd, they would all chant, ECW, ECW, ECW.
Yeah, whenever someone went through a table, got hit with a gimmick, lots of chants of ECW. They were very proud of their little ragtag gang here. And there was some good stuff. People always say ECW was way ahead of its time, and it's true, because in this first match here, Super Crazy versus Tajiri, who looked like 10 years younger than he did when he debuted in WWE 3 years later. It was pretty incredible. But they had a match. I was watching this match, and I'm like, this is every fucking ROH match from 2005 through 2008. They were very ahead of their time.
They were on it. Yeah, this was quite a match.
Yeah, they did a lot of lucha, which, depending upon how you feel about lucha, was either good or bad. I sometimes find lucha to be a little contrived. They take a lot of times to set up their spots, and sometimes it kind of feels like it's a gymnastics routine. But they were doing some cool shit. I'll give them that.
Yeah, as in my eternal words, it was a match full of flippy shit.
Yeah.
And I liked it.
Yeah, this was billed as the final match between the two, and the winner would be the winner of their feud. It was pretty good for the first half. Like I said, they did a lot of cool lucha. Tajiri hit this crazy flip dive and Cavrata, or a lion salt if you don't lucha speak. They did some more dive spots onto the ramp, which was like level with the ring, so it was more or less just
A platform.
Yeah, like I don't know, it didn't have the impact of like a tope onto the floor. I feel in terms of like wow factor.
Hmm. And that's a theme we'd see come into play often during the night. Is that the construction of the ring area? Not the ring's fine. The ring area, I think, needed a little work. It was the steel bars. It was the steel fence, so that the crowd could get closer to the action, and the flat ramp. But the pit area, we'll call it, was small.
Well, they were probably running a small building because ECW did not have a lot of money and could not afford to run larger buildings. So that was probably a necessity. They probably kept it small so they could fit as many people into the building as they could.
Hmm. And to be fair, they would do some cool spots with it.
Yeah. It's the intimate atmosphere of an ECW show. The friendly confines of the ECW arena, where you will be lambasted with chants of "she's a crack whore" and "she has herpes."
Just classy, boys. Keep it classy.
The 90s. It was a simpler time. There were some things that went on in this match. As this match went on, super crazy, very athletic, very rotund, a little bit sloppy. So, he wasn't exactly crisp on a lot of the things he was doing, and it all culminated with he went for some sort of springboard, and he slipped, and the crowd started chanting, "You fucked up," which is not a bad thing. Like, it kind of took the heat away from the match, but in fairness, he did fuck up. What I had a problem with was Tajiri just being like, yeah, laugh at him, instead of like treating it like it was a shoot where if this fucker slipped, I'm gonna get on him. I'm gonna start raining blows on him.
Yeah.
Or at least go for a cover. Not let him like throw a temper tantrum and laugh at him. Like, that just kind of broke the immersion of the match and kind of killed the finish a little bit. The finish was crazy. Got a pin off of a sunset flip after a series of several reversals. They did that spot where they do that, the interconnected cradle where they can just flip back and forth. They did that for like 5 minutes, and eventually Crazy got a sunset flip and got the flash pin. Tajiri did not believe it was 3, but no one really protested. It didn't lead to anything except the next match, Balls Mahoney versus Steve Corino. Corino came out, said that both guys in the previous match sucked. He said he didn't take steroids, which was very obvious from taking one look at him.
Yeah.
He was maybe even smaller than me in terms of mass. He was definitely shorter than I was. Or I am, I should say. He said he didn't wrestle in foreign countries, and he challenged anyone from the back. You could hear the crowd start to chant for Sid, but it was not Sid. It was Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney. They came out. They had a quick little match. They were working their ass off. I'll give them that. They worked hard, but it wasn't very good. This was one of the problems with ECW. They didn't have a lot of great talents. They were pretty good at booking to their talent strengths, unlike a certain wrestling company I'm familiar with today. But you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
Yes.
And this match was pigly. So
Pugly.
Yeah, they had a match here. They kept gimmicks out of it for the most part. Mahoney did something very impressive for a guy his size. He delivered a splash off the top and cleared about 2/3 of the ring, which was quite impressive. There was a funny little spot where Corino grabbed a chair, but instead of whacking him with it, he sat down and grabbed a chin lock. Thought that was funny. Great way to get heat with this crowd. But Mahoney got a pin after a very ugly looking super kick and a hard chair shot to the head. Which those are kind of weird to watch nowadays. With all the
it's
concussions
such
and shit.
an oddity.
Yeah.
But man, when the heels were heels, they would just call out the audience.
Yeah, they were. Even the baby faces would call out the audience sometimes. Yeah, that was a quick match. Only went about 3 minutes probably. Next up, we had Little Guido of the Full-Blooded Italians versus Antifaz del Notre. This was a pretty good match. Little Guido, despite the name, very, very capable worker, as was Notre here. And they had a pretty good... They had a nice little match here. Did some flippy shit, some old school wrestling. And then they got the gimmicks out.
Yep. Give it time.
People got power slam through tables. Match finish was Big Guido, or not Big Guido, but
The
other
big dude.
other large Italian man.
Sal Graziano.
Sal Graziano. That's an Italian name, if I ever heard one. Slammed him through a table. Guido delivered a leg drop and then got a Boston Crab, which they called the Italian Crab, because of course they did. For the submission win, and after the match, Smothers and Rich showed up and they attacked Guido with the flag, and Graziano chased them off after no selling a flag shot. So, and when I say chase,
He sort of ambled after them.
yeah, it was a slow speed car chase for sure. It was more of a controlled waddle.
He is not a small man.
No, he certainly was not. Much like no one would accuse Steve Corino of being on steroids, no one would accuse Sal Graziano of being a small man. This led to the best match on the card, and quite frankly, the reason we watched the show.
Yep.
Rob Van Dam had a match against Jerry Lynn, which went... I didn't time it, but they said it went to a 20-minute time limit draw, and then they had like a minute or so of overtime. So
Yeah,
we'll
just
call
a little
it
bit longer.
22 minutes. But this match was great. They did a lot of neat shit, a lot of cool sequences. They worked a hell of a pace. These dudes had some cardio, because they just kept going and going and going. They didn't stop. They went all out for the whole 20 minutes with just the like little couple minute rest period between this and the overtime period.
And I think that's like ECW at its best, is when just the pace and the intensity goes, for all the edginess, the 90s stuff that it was, you could really whip yourself up into a frenzy and start going ham on them.
Yeah, and go ham they did. They had some good technical wrestling stuff. They did some cool flying. They, of course, got the gimmicks out. Jerry Lynn hit crazy German suplex and a DDT. RVD always sold DDTs and pile drivers beautifully, and that was no clearer than in this match, where like in back-to-back moves, Jerry Lynn hit a DDT that RVD did the RVD sell, where he spiked himself on his head to sell this, and then he kicked out. And what was the next move? A pile driver, where he somehow even more violently spiked his head against the mat to sell this thing.
You can't hit me as hard as I can hit me.
Pretty much. This is like when Brock Lesnar tries to bust himself open hard way by ramming his head super fucking hard into the ring post. only much more elegant. So they go to the time limit, and the referee, for whatever reason, goes up to. There's also I want to throw this in there. There was a interview with Bill Alfonso, Sabu, and RVD before this match, cutting a promo about the main event and RVD's match, and RVD is like fucking probably blazed, and he's still cutting this hilarious promo, and the best line from that promo is like, and when Sabu wins the ECW World Title, the question's going to be, how does Rob Van Dam carry all this gold and his partner?
Oh God, promo game strong, boys.
Yeah, they did. Like I said, they went to the time limit draw. And for whatever reason, the referee was acting like he was going to award the belt to Jerry Lynn. For some reason, they said referee's decision, but he didn't stop the match. Number one, it was a draw, and as long as they've been doing professional wrestling, a champion always retains in the case of the draw.
Right. You gotta beat the champion to get the belt.
Yeah. As Ric Flair said, you gotta beat the man to be the man. But Jerry Lynn pulled a dumb babyface move and was like, no, 5 more minutes. I want 5 more minutes. I can beat this guy. Even though he was going to get the title for some reason. I'll forgive him because he probably knew, no, this is bullshit. It's a draw. Champion retains in the draw. I need to beat this guy. So they went to their overtime, but it was quick. They traded a couple of moves, and then RVD went up. He hit a Van Terminator and went up top for his 5-star frog splash. And I know the ECW ring was probably only 16 by 16, not 20 by 20. But still, he launched himself 3/4 of the way across this ring and turned 90 degrees because he was not properly aligned when he took off to hit this frog splash.
We have to make some mid-flight course adjustments here.
He was a thing of beauty. He got high in the air, turned 90 degrees, came down perfectly on Jerry Lynn, and he jumped 12 of that 16 feet across that goddamn ring. I'll tell you what.
That span.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it was pretty much all downhill from here.
As you do.
Yeah, they showed a pre-tape they showed tape of a pre-show angle with a adult film star, as they referred to her, Jasmine St. Clair. Now, I'm not a connoisseur of the 90s adult film scene, so I'm not familiar with her work. But she certainly looked the part. I'll say that. She was cutting a promo about how she was taking over the wrestling world or something to that effect, and then Francine came out, who looked... I was reading the Observer before this, and my notes are heavily based on the Observer from here. And Dave Meltzer wrote, she looked like she hadn't slept since the Carter administration. And she gave Jasmine St. Clair the worst stunner in history. Like, if you thought the first time Stone Cold stunned Vince McMahon was the worst stunner you've ever seen, you owe it to yourself to go track this down, because my god, that looked ugly. Francine came out in 5-inch heels, weighing all of 76 pounds, and just delivered this ugly stunner. Yeah. So that was the that was very important, I guess, to show.
Great.
But you know what? It was still better than New Jack versus Mr. Moustafa.
You mean the trash bin match?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Mustafa comes out, and then New Jack comes out, and I guess since Snoop Dogg is a WWE fan, they retained the rights to Natural Born Killers, which was fortunate because I'd hate to see what the fuck they would have played during the entirety of the match.
Yeah. Did they just forget?
That's New Jack's gimmick. They play
Oh,
his music throughout the entire match. Why? I don't know. Probably because they actually paid for natural born killers, and they were goddamn it gonna get their money's worth.
and that felt like with the music behind it, this felt like the '90s wrestling version of like a yakety sax skit.
Yes, it very much did. So New Jack comes out with what I can only assume was a shoot garbage can full of just these flimsy gimmicks. There was keyboards and guitars and just all kinds of shit. And this was like, as far as gimmick matches go, this was like the very definition of a gimmick match because all they fucking did was hit each other with gimmicks.
Pull the keyboard out, you smash it, and the keys fly everywhere. I like that part where they tapped the other guy with the whatever gimmick and it just shattered into pieces.
Yeah.
They had to sell a Fisher Price bump.
Yeah, they had to sell like a fucking Fisher Price, you know, the lawnmower toy that does the popcorn things. If you've ever been in a house that a 4-year-old has lived in, you know what I'm talking about. And just had to sell for that. So they hit each other with all the garbage, and then New Jack did his dive, and that was the match.
And I'm looking at it here, and that apparently went 9 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Actually, it felt like it went 25 because it would goddamn not end.
Oh,
Then Dudley showed up. Devon looking very slim, and Bubba Ray looking very much not slim. Devon the skinniest I've seen him. Bubba Ray the fattest I've seen him.
the waxing and waning moon.
Yeah. They did cut a long promo running down everyone. I'm reading in the Observer here that Bubba had lost 30 pounds, which, goddamn, I'd hate to have seen him before this.
I slimmed down for this role.
I cut it, yeah. So they called out whoever the fuck in the back. Some geeks ran down. They gave him a 3D. They gave a 3D to the ring announcer, and okay, that's what that was. And hey,
More
they
bad
called out
news.
more guys, and who was this guy? Who was this Reverend dude? Did you
I
catch
don't
his name?
know.
Because I didn't write him down. Yeah. So Spike and Nova were the geeks who ran down. They killed Nova, and they sent Spike out into the crowd, and he crowd surfed. And then Jeff Jones. Okay, this was this guy's name. After far too long of them cutting another promo, Jeff Jones came out with a stretcher, and he was going on and on about something, and then Sid came out. Psycho Sid, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, out of nowhere. Was not expecting him. Honestly thought he was still with the WWF at this point. Or maybe he'd gone back to WCW, but no, he showed up here in ECW, looking a lot more like a professional wrestler than most people on the show.
Yeah.
But I love Sid because he's just so fucking stiff.
It's beautiful.
He's like Frankenstein's monster. He does not bend at all.
Frankensteiner's monster.
So yeah, Sid came out and he fucking beat the shit out of the Dudleys, powerbombed them, choke slammed them, did all kinds of stuff. Spike ran in, hit a Dudley dog after low blowing Bubba, and they won the match, I guess. So the match itself went all of like 5 minutes, but this segment went like 15 easy.
Yeah.
And it died at death. It was at this point in the show I'm like, I need to fucking take a break. So I stopped watching for the day and then picked it up later.
Yeah. It just dragged so much at points.
Yeah. And then a match that, with the talent in it, should have been far better than it was. We had Tommy Dreamer and Shane Douglas versus Justin Credible and Lance Storm. Lance Storm is one of the better workers in the history of the business. Justin Credible and Tommy Dreamer aren't bad, and Shane Douglas was pretty okay. But this match fucking sucked.
Two rights made a wrong.
It was long. Nothing happened. This must have been like Lucha Rules for a tag match, because no one fucking tagged in and out. They would just come and go as they pleased.
Yeah, oh.
I had no idea who the legal man was. There were too many valets. Fucking Don Callis, of all people, who they called Cyrus. Cyrus the Virus, as Joey Styles tried so desperately to get over on commentary.
Yeah. That didn't happen.
No, there's valets, this match was a mess. It was too much about... The story of the match, supposedly, was that, Shane Douglas was contemplating retirement, and Justin Credible and Lance Storm wanted to take up the mantle of the franchise, but, none of that played into the story of the match, because it just, it was a nothing happening match, and then fucking, the girls came in and had a cat fight, which Joey Styles fucking...
And the crowd popped hard for it, because they're like, oh, cat fight, yeah! Herpes.
To be fair, it was far more exciting than anything else that had gone on in the match up to that point. And, so this was the match where we had the lovely chance of, she has herpes, and she's a crack whore. So they hit the ring, they have a cat fight, Cyrus comes out, just fucking nonsense here. For those of you keeping score, Dreamer and Douglas did get the win.
Not that it mattered, because they just kept going after the finish.
They might as well not have even had a fucking finish, because it meant goddamn nothing. This match was not good. The middle portion of the show was just bad.
Desert.
I will say this. It was better than Bash at the Beach. Because other than the opener of Bash at the Beach and the last match, which was okay, not great. Other than the opener, everything on fucking... There were no... Alright, that's not true. There was a -star match on this show. But it was not as much a -star match as Public Enemy versus the Nasty Boys on Bash at the Beach. So this was a better show than that, but the middle portion of the show was eerily reminiscent to the undercard of Bash at the Beach, in that it was just match after match after match of just nothing fucking happening.
Why? How? Why? What? Huh?
Yeah. Then we had the main event, Taz versus Sabu in a unification match of the ECW World title and the FTW title. They had a heck of a match, honestly. This was some of the cleanest wrestling I've ever seen from Sabu. He hardly botched anything.
Because if you botch shit, he'd fucking break his jaw off.
Yeah, the story here was Sabu was only at 70% because he had a broken jaw, which was probably just something... I don't know if he actually hurt his jaw or not.
I think he did, because he got color at the end of the match on his face.
Well, he could have gigged himself. I don't know. The Observer said that was probably just a concession to him because he did not want to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever the case may be, this was probably the best match I've ever seen Sabu have on pay-per-view. And it was good. They worked snug. There was Taz threw him around a lot. Sabu did a lot of crazy shit.
I like that was one of the things I was a little concerned about when I was talking about the size of the ring, or the size of the area. I'm like, man, he couldn't do like a cool moonsault off the rope, and then he stepped up off the chair, did a moonsault into the inside of the ring.
Yeah.
Oh, That was pretty tasty.
Yeah, his triple jump moonsault when he doesn't botch it is a thing of beauty, but he only has about a 60% conversion rate on it.
It's a 90% accuracy move in Pokemon. Only hits 5% of the time.
Yeah, always the inverse. Yeah, these guys, they worked hard and it was a good match. Triple jump moonsaults, triple jump leg drop, Taz plexes all over the place. There was a particularly nasty one where Taz hit a dragon suplex through a table, and we've talked about how tables actually soften the bump, but Taz did not let go of him. Let him take this bump. So he just drove his ass right through the table and spiked this motherfucker's head right into the table bits. That could not have felt good. Bill Alfonso went to throw in the towel. He blew the spot, throwing it in too early, because Taz hadn't locked in the choke yet. But Sabu threw it back. Taz locked in the choke. They did the arm thing. Sabu powered on at 2 one time, and then they did it again, and he was out. Taz got on the mic afterwards. This match was also made Falls Count Anywhere, because Taz is apparently a man with booking powers in ECW, so he just made it Falls Count Anywhere.
Insipid Taz booking.
Oh man, I can't see Taz without thinking of the Oompa Loompa. I've seen much of media tonight.
Yeah.
It's Taz! Taz would be out of ECW and into the WWF, this was in March, so 10 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. Where he would give Kurt Angle his first loss, and then they would do nothing with him for the rest of his run of the company. Oh, you did it. That's a fun cliff note. Who gave Kurt Angle his first loss? It was Taz. They must have had big plans for Taz. Well, maybe, but they didn't fucking do anything. But yeah, this match was nice. Taz went on, cut a promo, and shook Sabu's hand. Someone in the crowd was not a fan of his display of sportsmanship. Taz told him to fuck off.
Yes.
That was the end of the show. It was a mixed bag. When it was good, it was good. And when it was bad, it was bad. There was very little in between.
Yep.
So we'll give our star ratings here. Super Crazy versus Tajiri. I gave that 3 1/4 stars.
3.5. What's that?
Balls Mahoney versus Steve Carino. I gave a star simply for the chin lock spot.
Yeah, that's a 1.
Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn. I gave 4 stars to.
Little Guido and Antifaz.
Oh, did I skip Little Guido? Yeah, Little Guido and Antifaz del Notre. I gave a 1.5 stars to.
Yeah, 1.5. Just a little better than Balls Mahoney.
Yeah. Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn. I gave 4 stars to.
Yeah, that's a 4-star match. That's what you came here to see, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that was your goods. I gave -5 stars to the stunner Francine laid on Jasmine St. Clair. That was not really a match, but I just want to point out that was the worst stunner you've ever seen.
I give it a Steve Austin missing a beer catch out of 5.
A rare thing.
Yeah, just failed at doing Steve Austin things.
I remember that one time they were doing it on Raw. There was Steve Austin and Chris Jericho in the ring, and the guy was tossing the beers into Steve, and he tossed one into Jericho, and Jericho drops it, and he's just staring at it down at his hand and the beer can on the floor, and Steve Austin's just giving him this look. he eats a stunner for it. It's great. Not great. New Jack and Mr. Moustafa. I gave this -2 stars.
I actually gave it a star because I loved how stupid it was.
Well, that's fine. That's like totally your opinion, man.
It's life, totally.
I guess Sid Justice / Vicious / Psycho Sid and Spike Dudley versus Bubba and Devon. Gave it a half star.
Yeah, half stars. About where it needs to be.
Dreamer and Douglas versus Credible and Storm. I gave a single star 2.
I gave this -1.5 stars. Ah.
Yeah, I can't give negative stars to a Lance Storm match. It's against my genetic coding. He's earned that much respect from me. Taz and Sabu for the unified title. I gave a 3 3/4 stars to.
Yeah, I'll give this one a solid 4 because I will go back. If I come back to this, I'll watch. These are the 2 matches I'm going to watch. I'll watch Taz, Sabu, and RVD, Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, RVD and Jerry Lynn had, I think, 2 more pay-per-view matches. The one on the next show, Hardcore Heaven, I think is the best, but I had already seen that one before we did this pay-per-view, so we went with this one. Also, Hardcore Heaven was a 1-match show.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both worth watching. RVD's entire ECW TV title reign was something special. He held that title for like 540 something days. Never lost it. Had to vacate due to injury. It's one of the greatest title reigns of the 20th century. I'd say 21st century, but that's not strictly accurate. Or at all.
Speaking of some all-time greats, we're coming up here. If you have a general grade for this show, we'll hear it, but we're going to come up on NXT this week.
Yeah. Or do you want to do that on a separate show?
I don't care. We'll just shoehorn in a to be continued.
Yeah, we'll do it on a separate show. So that's going to wrap it up for the sake of confusion, or avoiding confusion. We'll do it on a separate show. So overall, this was a thumbs in the middle show. Watch the top 2 matches, and that's really all you need. All right, so we'll be back in just a bit with our NXT review. Bye-bye.